Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success and what they have learnt along the way. Hello everybody and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today I am so excited to introduce to you Shokufeh Kavani, who is an amazing lady that I've met, who is currently a registered nurse at Northern Beaches Hospital, but she has an amazing journey as an acclaimed artist who was born originally in Tehran. To Iranian parents, and she spent her early years there and was deeply impacted by the Iran-Iraq war, and that sort of set her up for incredible talents in the world of painting and art, and I'm really looking forward to sharing her journey with you today to see what an incredible life journey it is and how it's deeply impassioned her to be able to bring out her story through art. She's also been awarded multiple times for Order of Australian medals, and so yeah, her journey is an interesting one, a unique one, and she's certainly a lady who is going to capture your heart because her heart is bursting with what she does for the Iranian community and for women globally who have lived through very, very trying, challenging times in history. So welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Annie. Thank you. Really appreciate that you paid attention to me and my work. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. You're very kind.
It is such a pleasure and such an honor to interview you, to be honest with you. Let's start back with you were born in Tehran and to Iranian parents. And so tell me, what was it like for you as a young girl before the war sort of started?
Okay, I actually was born in a change of the history, in if you want to say, which really happened in Iran, but believe it or not, affected the whole world. Because I was born in 1970 in Tehran, from Iranian parents. My father was originally a Kurdish man, come to Tehran when he was 7 years old. But I'm always proud of my Kurdish heritage, although I cannot speak the Kurdish language. But when the first years of my life was under the Shah of Iran, I had a very, very normal childhood with my parents and my family. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. I'm the youngest, so I had a very beautiful childhood growing up in Tehran. And then I was 9 years old when the Islamic Revolution in Tehran, in Iran, happened, and it changed the life of all of us. And eventually, I think the world and Iran relationship with the Western world. And it was very, very fast year during the 1979, because I quite clearly remember all those days, if you believe it or not, because how it all stopped, all this demonstration in the street and the violence and the gunshot and everything. And then they closed down the schools, everywhere. And then I was at home, they sent us home, but because my family, like everyone else, was affected, because my sisters and brother, they were really involved as a young generation. They were the pro-revolution and against the Shah dictatorship. But now I want to actually say something. Shah was not a very democrat man, but he was much, much better than the current Islamic regime in Iran. So I have to clarify that. That doesn't mean that Shah was... everybody thinks if we don't like this government, it means that Shah was perfect. No, he was not. But he was much better than these people. But yes, but because he had this sort of secret Sabak police, and there was just one party and source of dictatorship, people turned against him without knowing who they actually inviting in. And then Ayatollah Khomeini came to Iran with the support of Americans, believe it or not, because everybody forgets this. things, that they didn't even give visa to Shah to go to USA, although he was his strongest allies in Middle East before. But because he became very strong for them, and he made one of the strongest armies in the war, and he increased the price of the oil, so American didn't like him anymore, so they tried to get rid of him. So they actually accommodated the return of Ayatollah Khomeini to Iran quickly. So Shah actually were wandering around the world like a nomad. He went to Panama, he went to South America, and then he went to Egypt, and eventually he died in Egypt because of the pancreatic cancer. But then Ayatollah came to Iran in 1979 in February, and I remember that because my father was a monarchist. My father was actually against the return of the Ayatollah, and I remember he was telling my sisters and brother that when the Ayatollah come back to Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, they will do the things to you that even I did not force you to do that. They will make the women to wear the hijab, because hijab is not actually compulsory in the Iranian culture. Because we are not Arab, and if you look at the historical books of the Iran before the Arab attack, there are no women covered, and we had queens and princesses and everything. Hijab came with the Islam. But during the Shah, it was not compulsory. But later on, I tell you more about it, but that's what my father was telling me, that they're going to restrict the women freedom and all this education and everything. But my sisters and brother, they did not believe him. And I was very young. I was 9 years old, so I did not have any opinion, but I was a quite good observer. I could see all these things. And I remember very well, because I used to go to my sister's house to look after her children, and when my sisters were going for the demonstration against the Shah, and Ayatollah Khomeini came back to Iran with a great victory. And it's very interesting how this life-changing events, which eventually affected everyone around the world, happened in the heart of the earth, and not so many people paid attention to it. I mean, when you come now and people see the effect of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, 40 years on, now they realize what really happened in Iran. And at the time, maybe they did not pay enough attention to it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then the first year, when I became 10 years old, it was quite challenging, because suddenly there was a little bit of fresh air. There were different political groups, and they were practicing freely, and suddenly people have freedom of speech and all these different type of parties, and everybody was fighting for power. But Ayatollah has not come here to bring us democracy, so we actually been deceived by him. So little by little, when he made him put his feet on the ground, and then he started hijacking the revolution, and then starting butchering all these different political parties. So the first 3 years after the revolution in 1970 years were very essential and bloody years, as you call it, because I quite remember that, how they started forcing women to wear the hijab. When I was going to a school, when they reopened the school, they said women cannot come to the cinemas, to the offices, to the public meeting without wearing the scarf. And so many women actually rejected the idea, and there was a massive demonstration in Tehran, believe it or not, because especially since I came to Australia, there is a very wrong idea about the Middle Eastern women. They think we are very, observant, and we do whatever they tell us. No, that's not true. Women's movement has been very, very strong in Middle East, and especially in Iran. We had the right to vote, we can study, we go to university, and it's not that we accept everything that they tell us to do. And I was quite young, but because of my sisters, I was always seeing and getting involved and going with them. They were taking me as a child, but I was seeing that there was a demonstration, and women actually arguing and fighting with all these mullahs who trying to force. And then they did it as, how the Nazis took power in Germany. They did it little by little. And after they banning the women from the offices, so many women actually resigned because they did not want to wear the hijab, just going to the offices. And then after that, you cannot come to park and cinemas. And then after that, you cannot come to the streets. And then they were a group of like a hooligan type of people, like a thugs, or as you call them. And they started attacking the women who were not covered. And then it come to the point that so many women just started wearing the hijab because to protect themselves, because if you go to the street and every time somebody is spitting on you or attack you or tell you bad names, so you say, okay, let's wear these scarves, just it doesn't matter. And then became a norm and became a rule over there. And you had to, because you have to go to a school, so you say, okay, I'm wearing this, so because I can study, at least I can study.
Of course.
Yeah, but it didn't mean that we accepted it easily. Over the years, it actually became an act of defiance. And then so many women, like we made a fashion out of that hijab, colorful, put makeup, so many women wearing permanent makeup because they said, look, I was born like this. What can I do? Yeah, yes.
I love that.
Yes.
The pioneers of the makeup tattoo.
Yes, that's true, because when they tell them you have to wash up your makeup, they say, why do I was born like this. Look, wash it up. It doesn't go anywhere, And yes, that's true. And then, it was just become like a sort of fighting with women, because that was a basic right. And then I wanted actually to clarify that it was not men who forced us to do that, because as I said before, there is lots of wrong conception about Middle East. They think every Middle Eastern man is a dictator. It's not like that. My father was very liberal. My brother, who think he does not have any power, or so many Iranian men, they just simply can't do anything. You know what I mean? And then women started fighting back with this hijab. The more pressure government put on women fought back. And what they did was, like, even by covering themselves, they started making challenges, go to start doing more sport, doing more study. And government was pushing limiting the access of the women to the university courses. But women did not want to get married, just wanted to get to the university. And then the war came. It was 1981 when the war of the Iran-Iraq happened. And I remember that very quite clearly, because we were in Tehran. The first few years, we were not really affected that much, just by seeing all these war refugees coming to Tehran, not, being attacked by missiles and, rockets and things, till it actually happened in Tehran a few years after, when Saddam wanted to stop the war. But this gave the Islamic regime a very good opportunity to establish itself. Because what they did was, they said, okay, we are at the war now, we have a common enemy, so we don't have time for the different political groups or ideas, so they started butchering them. And there was actually there was a big two massacre in Tehran, which is now in the Hague International Court and under investigation. And there are years and years that especially the family is actually trying to take justice, because there was I think it was 1982, and then another one 7 years after, and they actually killed all these political prisoners. And I don't know, do you know Shokufeh Azar? She actually has my own name. My name is Shokufeh. Shokufeh Azar is my friend. She lives in Melbourne. She wrote a book, The Enlightenment of the Green Gage Tree, which actually in Australia became the top 10 bestseller, and I don't know, you heard the international bestseller. It's a surrealistic book about what happened during those years, how Khomeini ordered the mass killing of these political prisoners. And it all happened undercover. We were aware of it because my sister was a political prisoner, but she was not killed, thank God. But there were lots of other people have been killed. And then especially because we were at war, the Islamic regime could establish himself,
Mm.
forcing, putting more pressure on women and all the other groups, and and they used a war as an excuse to cut all the relationship with the Western world, to create hatred. But what I want to say that I am really proud of the Iranian people, because in spite of all these things that the government was trying to teach us, and all this bad publicity and media that we get from the Western world, especially because they don't know what's really happening in Iran, it was our parents that were actually trying for us not to be brainwashed.
Mm.
So, I mean, not just my parents, so many of my friends and the people around me, they were telling us, no matter what they teach you at the school or they try, you don't do it. This is not our culture. This is not, We had Jewish neighbors. My father said, you always respect them. Their prophet is older than the Muhammad Islam prophet. This is not our culture. And my brother and I went to an English school. I had an American pen friend. And then parents, at the school, they tell us, oh, why do you want to go to university? You have to get married after the high school. But all the parents were forcing us, sending us to special classes to get into the university.
Mm. Mm.
And because there were so many men at the front, they had to go to the frontiers. They had to use women because, there were like shortage of, skills. So women got to so many of the different type of industry because they had no choice. You know what I mean? I actually, I worked 7 months in a war zone myself. Actually, they just let you go 7 months. And it was the best time of my life, if you believe it or not, because it was a great experience. You meet wonderful people that they don't really care about the money or position. They are just there to help other people, although all these missiles and all this, under the bombardment. Yes. So it was a very interesting experience that I never regret that I've done it. And then after, so now if you look at Iran, I think 65% of 75% of the Iranian women are educated. So Iranian women became more educated than Iranian men, And yes, so many of them started having managerial positions or higher positions and things like that. And when the war finished, it was the beginning of the 90s. They could not put all these women back to the kitchen, because
Women had changed.
Yes, because the change happened. Although they forced them to cover, although all these women, there's women who were in the parliament, they were all covered up, but they had different ideas.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they didn't know what to do with them, so they had to accept them. You know what I mean? They had to accept. They had to accept them. And then you saw the result in the 1997 election. That was the year that I actually left Iran, because Iranian people chose President Khatami, who was a moderate face of Iranian. He was like, they said he's as charming as Bill Clinton. Iranian people sent a message to the world that we are not who you think we are. You know what I mean? We are not fundamentalists. This government has been forced to us and still forced to us. You know what I mean? We still keep fighting with it, and hopefully one day we get rid of them. But we are like you. We like a good life. We like parties. We like going to the beach. We like drinking alcohol. We are very normal. You know what I mean? And we don't hate you. You know? Yes. So, yes.
Crazy. It's crazy that you even have to verbalize. But by the way, we're actually all the same. It's like it's these distorted positions that we have, and we interpret who we think people are, and that's it. You're just a young girl growing up in a progressive family in Iran while the government is changing massively, against everybody's will, and you've still got parents who are very passionate about affirming who you are as a young woman, your rights, what they want for you. They want you to be educated. They want you to stand up for your rights, and doing that under a changing regime regime, which has massive consequences, is very brave, is very bold. And then to be able to get to that, live through that time when you actually go, yeah, we did it, and we came out bigger and braver and bolder for when we came out. So in that journey then, when did you discover your artistic talents? You became a painter. When did that happen in that time in Iran?
Okay, yeah, it's interestingly, I did not know that I want to become a painter or I ever have the talent. That was a very interesting discovery or shock to myself as well. When I was 19 years old, I remember when during all these massacres, as I told you, the political massacres, which was really affecting us, not just necessarily me. One night I had a dream. I remember I had a dream that I was lying on the grass, and around my head there were lots of flowers and uh, birds and things like that. And actually, when I read Shokufeh Azar book, actually in her surrealistic book, it was taking me back to that dream. So that even when you live in a hell, in a very dark times, it's all up to you to create that. If you keep the heaven inside, and if you have a strong values and have a strong beliefs, no matter how dark it is, you can still create the light. It's
Yes.
like Harry Potter. And when I woke up, I actually painted my dream. And because I didn't want to lose that image, it was so beautiful. I didn't want to lose that image. And then I showed it to my mother, and she actually quite liked it. And she described it for me how I felt. And I said, oh my God, that it came out of me. You know what I mean? Yes, yes, I do that. Yeah, because I did not plan to become a painter or paint or anything. But then after when I went to university, there were times that I had the same feeling. When there was accumulated feelings inside me when I went and painted it, and then I showed it to my friends. They realized what I meant. Without saying words, they were telling me, "Oh, this is how you felt. We feel sad. This is what."
Wow.
And yes, it was become interesting for me. Then I had a collection of 20 paintings. But to be honest, I never dared to have an exhibition in Iran. First, it was not my plan or what I want to do, or it was not the time, because my paintings were quite bold and very feminine and very like political, and it was, as I told you, very dark times in Iran. But it was becoming lighter and lighter. I could see some uh, women, more voices coming out as a painter or artist. But the thing was, there is a ministry of culture of guidance, Islamic guidance in Iran, that everything that you want to publish or exhibit or something has to go under their approval.
Yes.
And it's a very long process journey, and I was not really in the mood to go through that, so I did not bother. But when I came to Australia in 1997, when I came to Iran, and I want to tell you, when I came to Iran, Australia was like very like new journey, different world, everything. And then the first two things I realized that they don't really have the right idea about Iran. Majority of the people, you might meet old people who've been to Iran in their 70s when during the Shah, and everybody forgotten in Iran, and they have a very wrong idea about us. And beside that, this is a great opportunity to represent, because this is new. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Yeah, it's very new and might attract people. So, and then in 2003, because then I had a friend actually, then she really encouraged me to have an exhibition, and he said this is really good. You have to show it. And then 2000, there is an Iranian writer, Mrs. Shahnoush Parsipour, who is actually my mother-in-law. I told you before, she wrote a book in the 80s in Iran called Women Without Men.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that book, she was imprisoned, because in the book she referred to the virginity of the woman, which is actually a creation of a man's word, because man can claim a woman by creating the virginity, because there is no mark on a man, but they can mark a woman by being a virgin or not. And also the meaning of the marriage. Then the marriage is not when you they bring a mullah or priest, then it means you married. A man and woman are married when they both agree. It does not mean a mullah or priest to seal of approval. And this book, it's a very small book, Women Without Man. Because of that book, she was imprisoned, but it gained international attention.
Yes.
I mean, so far has been translated into 30 languages, and there is a film made by it by Shirin and Ashad. It was in the Sydney Film Festival. And it's, I mean, you can buy it, and it's a very delightful book. It's the story of 5 women that I don't tell you that, like, because it's a story of 5 different women. One of them is teacher, one of them is a normal household woman from a very upper class, and the other one is actually a prostitute who sees all the men without the head, because that's, they don't have identity. You know what I mean? It's a very Yes. And then Sharnush came to Sydney in 2003, and then I actually had my first exhibition. When she was there, she promoted it, and it actually was very successful in 2003. And then after that, then I started continue to exhibit. I had lots of group exhibition, and in 2005, I don't know if you remember, there was the Cronulla riots.
Yes.
And yes. It was a very racist riot. And then I, with my friend, she's a Yugoslav woman, I organized a group of artists. We were about 42, called Art for Humanity Against Racism. And then we had about, I think, 12 successful exhibitions all around Australia. And Australian government actually helped us. And 20% of our sale went to Afghan charity Mahbouba Ravi. She's actually Australian Afghan woman. She has 1 medical center and about 3 or 4 orphanages in Afghanistan. And there is a book published about her by Random House in Australia, and she is a recipient of the Australian Order. And then all these humanitarian efforts, I been nominated for the Australian of the Year 2005, 2007, 2008, and 2013. And then also the Pride of the Australian Medal by the Daily Telegraph, I think again 2005 and 2007. I don't remember the dates exactly. And then after that, that was one of my greatest achievements. In 2007, 2 of my works have been chosen for the Prince Claus Awards in Netherlands, which I went to Netherlands. I was among the 150 guests invited, and then representing 2 of my paintings, which are actually in the Royal Palace now. And I met the Dutch royal family. It was very nice time for me. And then after that, I was part of the Berlin Festival as well. And I went to the Berlin Festival. I played a small role as the Queen Elizabeth, because of in the Berlin Festival, how they wanted to use it, but they also exhibiting my work. And in 2011, 3 of my works have gone to Florence Biennale. And when I met actually Kofi Annan, who was the United Nations Secretary General at that time, and also Mrs. Prada, the Prada, yes, which I could not believe. And I have a T-shirt. She gave it to me, the Prada T-shirt. And Annie, you believe it or not, this T-shirt is ripped off, but I don't want to throw it away because it's given.
No, never throw it away.
Yes, I don't want to throw
Not
it away.
a hand-given Prada T-shirt from Mrs. Prada.
Yes. And then when I was actually in Florence Biennale, I was thinking, you see, when you actually believe in something and you follow it, your passion and dream, because of what you believe, it's not for me, it's for the voice of the Iranian women. You don't know where it's gonna take you. And I could not believe it.
That is your goal. That is your gold nugget to other women to be sharing. And that's actually why I love your story so much, because all of that journey has shown me that you're passionate about women and opportunities, and just boldly taking that for wherever it may go, to be blessed with a gift of art, when you hadn't even studied it, planned for it, expected it. You're not using it to be famous. You actually have just let your natural gifts come out through life, through experiences, through hard experiences, and through that self-expression. You've then journeyed with that through your life, and have now, that's right, arriving in Australia, as an immigrant after your experience, other people would just sort of shut down and sort of, settle down quietly, whereas you just arrive and go, I'm here and I'm angry about those Cronulla riots and they're not a good thing, and I'm going to use my art and my networks and I'm going to create new networks. You're a woman who leans into her calling, and that's just so powerful because of that. When this podcast is about sharing with successful women, and that is success, isn't it? It's successful because you're doing it not for your own gain, but because you're being who you truly are, and because of the opportunities that you then have, you're capitalizing on those and bringing other people on that journey and being a blessing to others. I think wow, what an impressive lady you are. So in that then, and congratulations, by the way, for all of those nominations. Oh my goodness. And everyone listening, you should also, yes, make sure you go and do some of those, read some of those books and watch some of those films. And, and I know this is still a life journey for Shokufeh, to make sure I pronounce your name properly.
Shokufeh. It's all right.
I'm going to get it by the end of the interview.
Yes, you do. Shokufeh, yes.
Goodness me. So I think there's just so much powerful learning for us. What was the biggest challenge then when you came to Australia? You suddenly got two worlds colliding, aren't you? You're leaving your history that people just don't understand and don't have appreciation of, and you're so passionate about them knowing who Iranian people are and your journey, and then you've arrived in Australia. What was your response to arriving in this new land? Did you see it? There's frustrations in there and then also opportunity. Share a little bit about that.
Yes, that's right. First, I want to say that I met amazing people along this journey. When I say things, it does not mean that everybody was like that, because I met lots of wonderful Australian people and lots of wonderful people from around the world who actually understood me and helped me. So it doesn't mean that, but as the biggest challenge for me is the stereotyping, as I told you. There is lots of bad publicity and bad media in Australia, which unfortunately majority of the Australian watch. There is lots of, there is SBS, there is ABC, there are good channels, good publicity, but not majority watch them. So there is a big populism like how it was in USA and made Donald Trump win.
Yes.
So there is also here as well. You know what I mean? That gives the very bad image of Middle East, of women in general, and of especially and men too. As I told you, Iranian men are not what you think. They are very normal. Yes, of course you get the odd things. You got the domestic violence or criminal, but every society,
society does.
Yes, and very stereotyping for me has been a big challenge, and it became like a daily battle. You know what I mean? Daily battle that I came to the point that I'm not going to explain myself all the time, because it became so tiring. You know what I mean? That I have to say, oh God, I knew Madonna and Michael Jackson before, I knew this. I'm a modern woman. I know I live in 21st century, and and it's just constantly, when you are from Iran, they think you are Muslim.
Yes.
Or you don't, they think for me, you know what I mean? And they constantly think that, I had a boyfriend in Iran. You know what I mean? My current husband was a boyfriend. And when I came to Australia, my niece, I didn't have a boyfriend here. She was telling, oh my God, my auntie, I changed like 30 boyfriends and you still don't have a boyfriend in Australia. You know what I mean? She was laughing at me, and Every single time, as I told you, I go to a party, when I have a beer, they said, we didn't think yet you can drink. I mean, why did you think I'm a Muslim? But because of the black hair or black thing, you know? And it's just interesting that they don't want to know, you know, that they don't want to discover about other people. Yes, Australia, I love Australia. As I told you, that this is a land of opportunity. I met lots of wonderful people who were not like that and helped me. But I'm talking about the general population,
Yes.
you know. Yes, this is a country, this is not the whole world. You have to raise above this, you have to expand your horizon, see where people come and what they have for you. I mean, you gave them lots of opportunities, but see, they also have things to offer, you know what I mean? And
everybody has something to offer.
Yes, and if you help them, because it's not helping me, you know what I mean? What I want to say, as women, we are also humans. And even in Australia, you know, men know that over the centuries, why men hold the power, because they know women don't support each other. That's how, you know, in history of America, this Kamala Harris is the first female vice president. That's shocking, you know what I mean? Because if you help one woman, these men are all creation. They all had a mother, they all had a sister. But when a man gets into a system, very soon he gets to the top. And the women support that. But women don't do it to each other. But we have to realize, when we help the woman, we help the society, the whole society. You know, most of these females in Africa, in Asia, in Middle East, I've seen so many very bright girls. It actually brings tears to my eyes. And they all these talents wasted, Annie. And then you see a stupid man gets to the position power, you know. And it's not just in Middle East, it happens in Australia, it happens in USA. Donald Trump is a quite clear example of what happens, you know, how a man can get to top just because of the fact being a man. And the society encourages it. You know, when he marries a 24 years old younger woman, nobody questions that. But when Gladys Berejiklian, the first question they ask her when she became the premier, I was shocked. They ask her, why you are not married, why you don't have children. I mean, do they ever ask a man this? They never do. Why a woman body are always subject of the people think they own her right to her body? I mean, if a woman chooses not to get married or chooses not to have a children or wants to, that's her right as much as a man.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And if she wants to have an older or younger partner or what, why it's still worldwide, you know, there will, in spite of all these efforts, we still got a long way to go to prove that as women, we are human. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We are human and we have the same rights as you as a man. But society constantly, you have to remind them why it is okay for a man and it is also okay for a woman too. You know? And so this was, and when you come from Middle East into a society, Australian Western world society, which liberal, when you say this thing, it's very hard, because it's like they think you want to challenge them or you came here to teach them something. It's not that. We are all in this together. And you know, September 11 was the great example of this, because what happened was confronted the two words, the words that you did not think it exists and is so powerful. And Western world suddenly was shocked by September 11, but they did not see it coming. What we could see, because of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, when the Taliban was funded by American in Afghanistan, nobody paid attention when they killed the people of Afghanistan. But suddenly the same Taliban had enough power to send terrorists to America, or now send terrorists to France. These are the same people. The mentality has not changed. They are still fundamentalists. So if you don't help the free thinkers, the liberal people in Middle East, you will face the same problem. You know what I mean? Yes.
Yes.
So we are all in this together, it does. Me and Annie, if we don't help each other, if you think that I have come here to teach you something, maybe I have come to teach you something,
Mm.
but just like be open-minded and accept it, that I might have something for you that may help both of us,
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
And it's about
yes.
being given the opportunity to have your voice, to share that as everybody else has an opportunity to share theirs, and that we have a mindset that we respect and embrace all views, and then learn from that and take what adds value to us and the world around us. Right? It's when those voices are suppressed or distorted that we then get a clouded view of reality. And so I love the way you use your voice and how passionate you are with it. It's absolutely beautiful. So why did you choose nursing? Here you are, this passionate activist who's an artist, and you've got this whole thing in your life, and then what chose you to then go and do a nursing degree?
Okay. How it started when I was in Iran. I actually wanted to study genetics, but then at that time, as I told you, they were restricting women more and more. There was no like they didn't let women to study genetics. It was just boys, and there was no reason. Tell you that I'm more stupid than them, or they said okay. And then I said, okay, I cannot study genetics, so I have to study something that take me out of Iran. So,
Hmm.
and then I did like a good investigation, went to several embassies and migration site, and I realized if I'm a nurse, then it's easier to get out of Iran and get the permanent residency and visa. So
Okay.
and I studied nursing, and that was actually opened a new door, and it was a great opportunity. As I told you, worked 7 months in a war zone, and beside that, nursing, and gave me the opportunity to travel without difficulty, because if you are a nurse, you can go to the like different mission and things and meet the people.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Everybody loves a nurse globally. It's wonderful.
Yes, and they give you accommodation, and and your family, they are quite, they know you're safe, and so I traveled over Iran with nursing actually very well. And then I applied for migration through Canada, which was my last option because I don't like cold weather, and Australia and New Zealand. Yes, I didn't want to go to Canada, and then Australia accepted me easily. But when I came here, they arrived here, they did not accept my nursing degree, and they told me recognition of my degree was just for migration purposes only. And I saw it again as an opportunity. I said, okay, I better re-study again because it's good for my English language.
Yeah.
So yeah, I studied, and it was a very interesting journey. As I told you, I met lots of wonderful people along the way. And then when I finished my bachelor of nursing, there I went back to re-study my genetic counseling.
Yeah.
And then yes, and because I was so not angry, but like they didn't let me to study genetics back in Iran. I did it so well that I became number 8 in the roll of the honor of the Charles Sturt University. If you Google my name, they put me in the alumni. Yeah, I was so proud because I wanted to. That was what I wanted to do.
Oh, you should be proud. Exactly. That's what you wanted all the time. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Brilliant.
but I don't work with it because I've got lots of experience in nursing, especially I work in operating theaters. And then I enjoy it because, the good thing about nursing, you are actually in contact with real people. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Uh, Maybe even if you are a doctor, you might not get that experience. You will see the true reality of the people, and people speak to you and they feel closer to you. And as you meet interesting people. I met you through Talat, or I met lots of people that are still my friends from different world, and people get to trust you. You know
Mm.
what I mean? If I explain things or give a lecture, people might not to trust me, but when you look after them,
Yeah.
and when you, yes, and then you like give them medication or do what they want, and when they need you,
Mm.
then they trust you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You don't just do that for them. You serve them with nothing in return for yourself. And
Yes.
that changes the trust factor. They've
Yes.
just, they've done it one because their job, but then when they treat someone kindly or do any of those extra sharing and things that you do if you're working in theatres and any part of your role as a nurse, they just go, she's actually genuinely nice and I trust her. Yeah. So
Thank you.
it opens up the dialogue, yeah, massively. Right?
Yes, yeah. And then they interested to know you more. And then when they know that I'm an artist, and they want to have a look at my art, and it opens up people to go and discover my history. You know what I mean? That's the only way you have to do, and get to know it. So, and I still enjoy it, and that was, I think, it's a good opportunity. And beside the fact that there is always a job in nursing, even in spite of COVID and all these things,
Exactly.
everybody shut down, but we were on high demand.
Everybody needs a nurse. Oh, so what does the future look like for you, Shokufeh? Where do you want to continue using your voice? What do you want to do with your art? How do you want to champion for other women moving forward?
I'm 50 years old. I'm 50 years old. And when I actually, one of those people that I did not suffer from the midlife crisis, because when they actually ask me how old you are, I say I am actually 1,000 years old. Because yes, I am here. Because yes, I am.
You feel like you've experienced 1,000 years.
Yes. I experienced a revolution, a war, and a migration. Each one of them is a trauma for one generation.
Yes.
Yes, my generation experienced three of them at the same time. I cannot describe it for you, to go out. So I actually witnessed so many things. So I think, okay, stop, see what I achieved over these 50 years. And I think I've done quite well. Yes, in spite of, all these difficulties, I've done quite well. Now I want to look back and see what I want to do in future. But maybe just let the things come to you rather than me fighting and trying. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yes, I have a collection. I'm working on a collection of the things that affected me in Iran and in my life in Australia as an Eastern world, living in the Western society, by two elements of these two societies, which you believe it, like Leonard Cohen, Leonard Cohen, the Canadian singer.
Yes.
He was a huge part of my life when I was growing in Iran, but nobody believes it because his music was underground, like we were buying his tapes in Tehran, and then we were listening to his music. And when he came to Sydney, I went to his concert. I was crying all the time, and people around me did not realize, but they did not know how Leonard Cohen could shape my world as an Iranian girl in Iran. You know what I mean? This is the beauty of art, that can like pass the barriers, go over the barriers. So I'm trying to put these elements, like, Hafiz is a very famous Persian poet, or Rumi, I put Hafiz as an element while I walk in the street of Sydney, or how Sohrab Sepehri is another Persian poet affect me in Paris. When I was in Paris, I was remembering Sepehri, which is how he felt he was, or how Leonard Cohen affected my life in Tehran. So I'm trying to put these elements to each other. You know what I mean? And then make a collection. And then hopefully next year, me and another friend, he is actually a calligrapher, Arash Nedai, we will have an exhibition in Concourse Chatswood. I don't know the exact timing. And then I'm actually working on a series of the translation of the Aboriginal mythology, because I already, as I told you before, I've got 5 books published, 4 of them in Iran. One of them is about Rumi. The other 3 is actually about the Aboriginal second stolen generation. And this one, I'm working on the Aboriginal mythology. So this year, because of COVID, has been quiet. But next year, I want to continue that and take it from there and see. I tried so hard over these years, Annie. I'm not tired, but I think it's the time that I let things come to me rather than me fetching them all the time. Yes, and see if there is, what's the result of my efforts,
Mm,
and hopefully if I have the exhibition next year, after that, taking it, and how I discovered you without even trying,
mm,
without even trying. And then uh, actually Leonard Cohen passed 2 days ago, 4 years ago, two uh, 2 days ago, and he said there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, you
mm.
know even you might live in the northern beaches and be very protected, and have a very fabulous life and think, but I think you are the crack how the light, I still can penetrate, and you can penetrate into my world. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We cannot ignore each other. You know what
Mm,
I mean? We are affected, and this is the art. Art does that. You
mm,
know, if you like go to a concert and listen to a South African music or African music, or stand in front of my painting, you feel what I wanted to tell you. And
mm.
that's the beauty of art. And I want to dedicate my life to this, no matter where it takes me, because I cannot plan it. It does its own way. It finds its own way.
Yeah, it sure does. And
Yes,
I just think that's so beautifully articulated that this is a common stage of life. Actually, I'm 53 very soon, and so I remember that happening to me around 50. That you suddenly get to a stage and you go, I'm really thankful for all the stepping stones, and all those stepping stones have helped me become who I am. And you've put all of your heart and soul and energy into them. And then it is that sort of next opportunity, which doesn't have to happen at 50, by the way, those listening,
yes,
but it's amazing how common it does, that it actually goes, I'm actually comfortable in who I am. I'm comfortable in my gifts. I'm comfortable in my voice. And I actually want to rise up to another level, to try less, but to absorb more, to allow, if you're in that space, if you've positioned yourself in a space of authority and passion and things that resonate with you, when we do that, we attract the right people. It allows opportunity. I call it my 80-20 rule. I like to leave about 20% of energy and time and space to be able to connect, then allow opportunities like us meeting and all the women that I meet on this podcast, and other things happening. Because when you're 100% busy, your head's down, and you can then miss those people who want to come through the cracks, right? And they're
yes,
meant to for a reason. They're your soul sisters. They're your army of women globally. They're people who want to appreciate your history and want to find out more about that, and how they can support you, and how that can impact their life. So I think that's so beautiful and so inspiring for those listening in to see, yeah, that's right, I want to get to a stage that it's not as hard. It's
yes,
not that hard when you own your truth and you dedicate your life to finding that and doing that well. Then the next part of the journey is actually, it's just joy. It's joy
yes,
because and you can hear that in your voice. You're passionate, but you've got that joy and satisfaction and confidence in who you are and what you stand for. And then the opportunities are infinite ahead of you, and it's about you being guided as to where to spend your time and place, moving forward. And also, who are those people who are going to stand with you and support you? I think that is so beautiful, and I'm so happy that you, against the odds, really have had this incredible inner desire and fuel. Your family, bless your family, right? Because
yes,
from what you've shared today, your family have just been a driving force of belief in you
yes,
and your
yes,
potential, and who they want all of their kids to be. And that has just been so powerful and influential, and that's what you're giving to other people who might not have had those families behind them.
yes,
You're showing that, believe yourself, back yourself. Other people are there to back you in whatever that gifting is, and also let gifts come out naturally, like your art. If you feel things, experiment with that. I think some other people could have said, oh well, I haven't been trained, I won't even bother. Whereas
yes,
you've let many things stir your heart,
yes,
and then you've responded.
yes,
So
yes.
What a blessing. Thank you so much for coming on my program today. You have just been an incredible voice of women's empowerment, and I wish you all the best for your future success. And I look forward to following your journey and being part of your journey in some way, as we can all be part of each other's journey in making this world a better place. So
thank you very much, Annie. I really, really appreciate your attention to me and my work, and giving me the opportunity to speak. And as I said, I met amazing, wonderful people in Australia, which I keep meeting. And in the end, I really want to thank my father, you said, because he might not be very highly educated man, but because he was an honest man, he could see the things clearly. And he was the most liberal man, in spite of that I ever met. He actually said, if you educate a woman, you will have a good society. And I never forget, that comes from a man, everything that I am today, I owe it to him. And yes, and I, God bless him, and I will meet him one day, and I know he's gonna be proud of who I am. And there are so many wonderful men out there as well. Thank you. Yes,
he would be so proud of you, and absolutely, he is just part of a world of amazing men who do know the value of affirming and supporting women to bring out the best in themselves for them and for society as a whole. So
thank you.
So proud of you. Wow.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes, and of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.